I think we're about to start. I just want a special intro for Nick Hamilton, who president of Georgian Peaks, RBC, amazing human being, loves this sport as a great skier, former racer, and a huge enthusiast. And Nick, take it away tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. Very kind, very generous. And good evening, everyone, fans of ski racing in Canada and around the world, and racing families. It's my pleasure to host this event as part of the Path to the Podium campaign that we've been hard at work with for the last number of years. Tonight is the Zoom format where we're trying to cast our net wide and far across this great nation of ours and discuss all things ski racing. So really, I wanted to highlight a little bit, why do we do this? What is the Path to the Podium? And Path to the Podium is not your typical type of campaign. It's really very much a grassroots effort that I kickstarted a number of years ago to foster discussions around, the pursuit of excellence in ski racing. And how is that done? It's not just done by the athletes themselves out there on their own. Obviously, they get nurtured through different ski hills, different divisions, different provincial teams, and then behind the scenes, there's a great community of support. Obviously, family, extended family, and fans of the sport. So it's imperative that we remember the community's role in this endeavor, and that's really what Path to the Podium is all about. We are, at the end of the day, not only about education and discussion and just being fans of the sport. We really want to propel it forward. At the end of the day, too, it does result in a fair bit of fundraising, and our fundraising is very, very organic, extremely targeted as we assess and seek to complement the funding that's done through various governing bodies here in Ontario, Alpine Ontario, and nationally, Alpine Canada. At the end of the day, Canada's legacy is one that is spectacular in that we have produced the best results. With the odds stacked against us, and we must improve that. There must be ways that we can improve that. Through the Path to the Podium, we have knowledge about funding gaps that we seek to fill with dollars that can be donated with families and fans of the sport like you. So to give you a sense of the power of what that has looked like in our success last year, have a quick watch of this video, if you would.
2 medals in Covitville. It just goes to show what level we're at. Broderick Thompson at the start of the season got us kicked off with his podium in Beaver Creek, and from there to the end of the season, that was just reassurance that all of us are capable of doing it.
Hey everybody, Broderick Thompson here. I just firstly want to say thank you for all your generous support in the past. It's really given us the opportunity as athletes on the Canadian Speed Team to put ourselves in the position to have some success. We really appreciate everything that you guys do, and it's really fueling our fire and is the wind at our back as a Canadian Ski Team. And we just look forward to representing everybody in Canada as well as the Path to the Podium on the podium. So thank you.
To come away with an Olympic medal.
Canadian Jack Crawford got to climb the Alpine Ski Combined podium last night after just missing out on a medal a few days before. After the downhill run, he had the second best time. His slalom was 7th best, but the 2 runs combined were enough for a bronze medal.
It just feels amazing to actually accomplish what I've been trying to do for so long. Everybody who's been a part of my ski career has moved me in a direction that has brought me here, and I can't thank everybody enough.
We couldn't be where we are without everybody supporting us, and we're really happy that those podiums came a lot sooner than we thought they would.
I think it's really cool to see the community coming together for Path to the Podium. I have my own roots in Collingwood through my mom's side and my grandparents in Osler. It's awesome just to see that you have athletes from all over the country finding support and this willingness from the community to really show that Canada has our back in Collingwood. So it's a great place and one of the meccas of ski racing in Canada.
Yeah, the support from last year was tremendous, and it really helped us be able to put our program at a very high level, competitive with those other nations that have millions and millions of dollars, and get us that on some time. That really made the difference. And rolling into next year, I think that will start to pay off. As you can see, the results are already starting to come from our squad, and it's only going to be up from there, I think.
All that hard work and dedication from all of you has finally paid off with some hardware.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're out there collecting hardware on the World Cup, everyone. So that is the good news. The legacy is alive and strong. And we're going to have a really good discussion here tonight. We have some amazing panelists with really deep pedigree in the sport. And I'm going to introduce everyone now, and then we're going to get into the discussion. And there will be opportunities to have your questions answered by these knowledgeable people. So be sure to use that Q&A chat in order to submit your questions. We will have prizes for the best questions, and these will be very good prizes, rest assured. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the panelists tonight that are part of this discussion. We have Jeff Reed, who's Canadian ski team member now 7 years. He's twice winner of the NORAM downhill title. He had breakthrough results there in 2021 with many top 20s, and a really great breakthrough result at Kvitfjell last year, or this year, I guess, yeah, 22, finishing 7th. So Jeff Reed is with us.
Everybody.
Then we have his roomie right there next to him, Jack Crawford. So Canadian ski team member now 8 years. And he has got some impressive results in 21 as well, with a few top 10s. And then last year, 6 separate 4th place results and 2 podiums, including the bronze medal in the Alpine combined at Beijing. So welcome, Jack.
Hello.
And then we have Aaron Milzinski, 14-year cast veteran, recently retired off the team and onto new ventures, which sound really exciting. 4-time Olympian and 2012 World Cup winner in the slalom, first time for Canada in 40 years. And I was reading up on you, Aaron, 19 top 10 finishes, amazing. Silver medal from the 2015 World Championships team event, and bronze medal from Zagreb, Croatia in 2013. So thanks for being with us, Aaron.
Hey, everyone.
So going to introduce the parents too, because they have deep pedigree in the sport. We're joined by Ken Reed, one of Canada's original Crazy Canucks. He was 10 years on the World Cup, first North American male to win a World Cup downhill. He's had wins at races you might have heard of called Kitzbühel and Wengen, both in 1980, and 14 World Cup podiums. Welcome, Ken. And Angus Crawford, father to Jack and brother to Judy Crawford, is no stranger to World Cup ski racing in the family. Judy, 23 top 10 finishes on the World Cup from the years 1969 to 1974. 4th at the Olympic slalom in Japan, 1972. So we got some really impressive folks here on the call. I want to start with the parents, though, because this path to ski racing for young athletes, it is an arduous one. What role should parents continue to play? And let's start with you, Ken.
Well, to me, it's quite simple. You're supportive. You're there. You make sure that all the different things, with the obvious ones of needing rides to the airport, to helping out with additional fundraising, with the details, making sure that you are providing a supportive environment to your kids in their pursuit of excellence. And then it's always useful to be a little bit of a conscience as well. So you're always asking, are you doing what you need to do to accomplish what you need today? each day, and then also thinking longer term. So, but I'm also believe the last thing I'll say is that the strongest relationship is actually between the coach and an athlete, and so that's something that you have to respect, you have to support, and the best way you can do that is always making sure that you support the coach and you support the athlete.
Yeah, no, that's the great commentary. Anything, Angus, you would add to that?
Well, it's nice to see that the parents are engaged. I go to the bottom of the Georgian Peaks, and the crowds are big for the U6, U7, U10, all the kids races. What I would like to see the parents do, or I'd like them to become more engaged in asking questions. One of their club programs that their children are involved in, or child or children, asking coaches questions of coaches with respect to, is there anything that we can do to help? In addition to that, speak to the provincial and national organizations to understand what the next level is. And then also to reach out to people that have history in the sport. When I started this, 8 years ago, I didn't know as much as I know today because I reached out to Cam, and we talk a lot. And that's where my knowledge has come from. So just continue to ask questions.
Yeah, I find it amazing just having worked with you guys the last few years, just how, I know that the team is busy racing, but how busy you guys are behind the scenes, it goes to show, obviously it's a lot of energy, a lot of passion, which I know you're happy to do. So with parents though, what are some of the risks, if they were to become disengaged or a lack of volunteering, that aspect also, right?
I volunteered all the way through Candace and Jack, as did say Ken and other parents. You go to the races. You may ask to be a side slipper. You may ask to be tear down a course. You meet new people. You get in conversations and talk about the sport. I think that's what we lose when people become disengaged. So it's also that you build long-lasting friendships. I'm still pretty close to all the people that, say, Candace skied with when she was 8 and 10 years old. And I think that's the sport in general, that it's a family thing to do, but it's also, you have great friends that will continue skiing forever.
Yeah, good point. Ken, what would you add to that?
Yeah, volunteerism is the foundation of our sport. We have upwards of 400 volunteers putting together a World Cup at Lake Louise as we speak. In addition to some, a small core staff that provide a lot of the work, but without the volunteers, you simply can't do it. And it's everything from officials, it's to the gatekeeper, it's to all sorts of different aspects, and it's something that while it may, to those that are not engaged, it may seem intimidating, but once you get involved, it's actually it's a lot of fun. It's a good social circle. You find that there's lots of people who have very similar pursuits and common interests that you have. And in the end, the common interest is our kids and making sure that they have the best races possible. And so that step up and it's not just actually on the hill, it's off the hill as well. At the club level, of course, getting involved in fundraisers with the administration, with executive, being, running to be president of your club, like Nick is, or moving up into the provincial ranks if it's something that's of interest, or becoming a volunteer, because FIS technical delegates are all volunteers, and their people or national technical delegates are all volunteers. And without that, and the basis of a lot of that are parents and their engagement and their commitment.
Yeah, great comments. All right, so let's shift to Jeff and Jack, and then Aaron, I want to get your perspective. So guys, I know that, parents offer a lot of support, but tell me in your own words what that extended family support looks like and what community support looks like for you today. Jeff, you want to start off?
Yeah, obviously it's crucial to have such a supporting family in the sport and at home. It's how we got here. It's how we started out skiing and everything. And so I'm very grateful for my parents for that, and it's come a long ways. And of course, the community is even just as impactful, I think. To have people that have the same interests and same goals around you, it's how you achieve excellence. And yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do it without your family around you. Obviously, we have our own little family on the ski team, and it's something that we really value, and it's something that I think really helps us in the World Cup, is having such a close-knit group of guys to support us, or to push each other and achieve excellence, because it's not easy out there. And to be in the kind of the same boat as 3, 4, 5 other guys, it really helps kind of lift the spirits and push each other to be our best.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not something you thought, you would be part of the equation maybe when you were younger, but now, I mean, how does that feel, Jack? When you get that community support, how does it kind of fit into your framework mentally?
Oh, it's a hard question. I don't think it's something that we think about all that often because of the situation that we're actually in. But mentally, it doesn't just give you the opportunities or the let's say right path, but it also gives you a little bit of incentive when there's other people who are also helping to push you, or helping you out so much. It gives you a little bit more motivation to maybe do it for the people helping you and not just yourself. And skiing's an individual sport that way, so it is something that you can get pretty locked in on it being a little bit about you, but one ski racer has so many people around him, and I think very few people would actually be able to do it alone. So mentally that way, it's definitely, it's something you can't let control your mind, because at the end of the day, it's what you're doing, and everybody else around you is there to help. And if you succeed, then they've succeeded. So it's just creating healthy relationships, and strong ones with people who want to be by your side, and you want them there.
No, love it. So Aaron, tell us a bit, when you look back at your career, what did your support network look like, and what could have been better, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my support network is, if you think of roots in a forest, that's what my support network was. It was everything overlapping and strengthening and being so powerful there. I mean, starting with my family, they were there every step of the way. I asked them not to be super involved in the day-to-day things, but they had my back. And I think what they taught me is like to love the sport, which is why I stayed in it so long, because I loved it. But I mean, my teammates became like my family, my coaches, like, uncles, and my teammates like sisters. And I think that the community beyond that, though, is what really became so special, especially as I got a little bit older on the team. I mean, we were raising money for team fees, and what was amazing is that I reached out with my bid project to have a bigger impact on the community. And then one of those little girls, she took all of the money out of her piggy bank and donated to my team fees. And that's when I really realized it comes full circle, that we all are integrated into this community together, and that it's not just about that ski racer on the World Cup, it's about that little kid at home watching us, and that it's important to give back that way as well. And as for what could have been better, I mean, I had an amazing, I don't think anything, I had an amazing community behind me the whole way. I have nothing but gratitude for everyone who raised me up.
Yeah, no, okay, good. That's great to hear. Because this, whole notion about, community or support, having support and having foundations from which you can excel, I think it has a lot of layers to it. And that's why I always come back to this question and say, okay, well, like, why are community events around ski racing and these discussions, why are they so important? I mean, I mentioned off the top, it does take a village to raise a ski racer. It's like raising a child. Certainly anyone who's been through that knows those early years are tough, and you're always working. But, expanding on some of those layers, Ken, why would you say it's so important that we, come back to this discussion around, how we can support our racers? I think you're muted there, Ken.
Just making sure. Thanks for the pointing me out. It's important because the community, the people that care about ski racing, the people that are involved with ski racing. So it's the immediate community. And the good thing is it's a family, and it's one that's quite wide. There's a lot of alumni. There's a lot of people that have been involved in the past. So because we have had a robust program in Canada for decades. So we need to always be working to be engaged, because the fundamental piece is, and one often asks, well, do you end up, do you ever not have to fundraise? And the answer is no, you don't. Because there's always something, there's always more detail, there's always, the world is always advancing, the competition is always getting tougher. And so there will always be gaps. There will always be items that you want to add to your program and you want to support. And that's at every level, the club level, the provincial level, or the national level. There was a question asked in the chat that's saying, is there a fundraising event that I've been involved in? Well, we had one this past Thursday, which is called it's the highest peak here in Alberta. And its focus is called the Canadian Ski Racing Hall of Fame, where we identified 5 individuals that have contributed 30, 40, 50 years of their life to ski racing, and we honored them. We brought together the community, and we had 250 people in the room, and we had a fantastic evening, a fun evening. And what drives me, my involvement in doing that, is every time I meet these people, I get to either write or edit their bios. And I learned something about what people have invested in our sport. And so those things of ways to bring together or knit together a community, but also to be able to ultimately, is to help our athletes, whether it's learning to become a good ski racer at a club level, learning to become get the quality in at a provincial level, or when you're in the national team, where it's now down to fine details. And you need that support to be able to compete with the best in the world, because now you're at the top. Now it's I'm racing against the very best, so I better be the best prepared I can be.
Yeah, and that's certainly a history that we want to continue to foster, that resourcefulness, right? And the more depth in that web of contacts that we have, the better. So that's great context. Okay, so for the listeners, what I'd like to do is talk to each of or the racers. I'll start with you, Erin, and just if you could describe what your path was to get to the national team, what route you took, and why.
Yeah, I think from the outside, it looks pretty what you would expect. I mean, I went through, at the time, everything was named different, but I went through Nancy Green and Mackenzie, which is U14, I guess, and then into FIS when I was 15. And my first year FIS, I was on a team with 18 girls on an Ontario development team, I guess you could call it. And then spent a year there, and then went onto the Ontario team, spent a couple of years there, and then made it onto our national team on the development team. I spent a year there. The next year, I guess I was kind of jumping between development and national team. So from the outside, it looks like I had a very regular lead up to the national team. I guess where it sets me apart a little bit is that I was a better water skier. So when I started alpine skiing, I started water skiing at 2 years old. So I went to the Junior Worlds for water skiing and Junior Masters, and podiumed there. And so I was kind of on a trajectory to be a water skier. So I didn't do any dryland fitness training. I missed a lot of school because I was missing it for both sports. And then it wasn't until I got the call from the national team that I had made the national team for alpine skiing that I decided to retire from water skiing and then follow the mountains. So it was pretty classic as my journey goes, but the dual sport was a little bit different.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, Jeff, tell us your kind of path to the national team, if you would.
Yeah, mine was pretty standard up the ranks. Obviously, started with Banff Alpine Racers at Norquay for my whole life, when I started racing, all the way up till my first year FIS, and then moved to the Alberta team for my second year FIS. Spent a year there. Did a lot of time with because Jack was already on the development team at that point, and I spent almost half the season with them in Europe and at World Juniors. Just kind of tasting the waters on international competition. And then that next year I was selected to the development team. We had a really small team because it was just me, Jack, Brody, and we trained with Ford and Morgan McGarry, which were kind of the old guys to give us some pace. Yeah, and from there, just I think I spent 3 years on the Devo team, climbing the ranks in NORAM, and finally made the national team, started making the jump to World Cup, and here we are now.
Yeah. Jack?
Mine was a little bit less generic, I would say. I was jumping around a little bit. I grew up ski racing at Georgian Peaks, same as Aaron, until first year K2, which is first year, I guess, last year U14 now. And then moved to Whistler for 2 years, where I wasn't really going to school while I was there, and all I was doing was skiing. So that was just definitely something that kind of set me apart. I was in a new place alone, didn't really know anybody, and I was there to ski. So that's what I did almost every day for about 2-3 years. And then, finished U16, went to FIS, had my first year of FIS went really well. So I made the development team the next season. And then pretty much from there, it was kind of with the national team ever since. So it was a little bit different, not so generic, but it was just a lot of skiing, a lot of skiing growing up through those kind of 14, 15, 16 years.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think it's important to note, obviously, every path can be slightly different, and, because just as people are different and need to find their way. Ken, do you want to chime in on how about someone like Eric, for example, just within your household?
Well, Eric's pathway was similar to Jeff's, that same thing, coming out of a strong club program, and stepping from there into a provincial program. He was only with the Alberta team 1 year and then moved to the national team and into the development group. I would say as a parent that what we did learn because we have 3 boys who have Eric and Jeff have a middle brother named Kevin, that maybe that was a bit too fast. It might have been better for Eric to spend another year at the provincial level, because that was also before the age change. So he was then with the national team from the time he was 18. And so that's just in retrospect that maybe a little bit of fine tuning. And out of that, I would say to any parent, always be considering and evaluating where is the best place for your son or daughter, and also making sure that they get what they need, and that it's fun, and that it's going to nurture them well. And don't be in a rush. It's a long pathway. It takes time. You get tremendous experiences as you go along. So back to Eric, he moved into the national team. He was non-traditional at the time. Trevor Philp had when they were both on the team, Trevor had chosen to go to the University of Denver to pursue his getting a university degree, and so ski the NCAA route, the national U.S. National Collegiate Association skiing route. And after and he did well, and Eric decided to follow that pathway, and it is a very viable pathway, keeping in mind that both Eric and Trevor and others are tech skiers, although Trevor is transitioning over to being including speed in his program now. But that's one of the difference between what Eric did and what Jeff and certainly Jack have done, because if you're a speed skier, that's a lot tougher. So that pathway can help bring additional resources in. It gives you additional competitive focus, because you're now skiing in NCAA is a pretty competitive level, but you're also getting a degree. And I know that's something that sits in the minds of an awful lot of parents, is saying, okay, I've want my child to go into ski racing, but I also don't want them to come out and not even have a grade 12 education. Well, the sport works very effectively to make sure that you get your kids through high school, but it also can work very effectively to go through either an academy or go through NCAA. There is one university program in Canada, in Calgary. And you'd find that those actually become additional tools for teaching you to become a much better person and an employee in the long term. It is a very viable, useful pathway, and it allows that time to mature. And I think that then helped when Eric finished with Denver. He came back to the World Cup, and then he's taken off from there.
Yeah, and you segued to a very important topic that was next on the agenda is balancing that education aspect and that workload with obviously some serious efforts to enhance, your development in the sport. And Aaron, I'm going to start with you on this. Tell me a bit about, or tell our listeners about the balance between school studies and racing. What are some of the things to be most mindful of?
Yeah, I think that I haven't done university, but we'll get there. So I'll start with high school. And when I was doing high school, I was balancing high school and like being a high performance athlete in two sports. And so I missed far, far more days than I attended at high school. But I was able to maintain average in the high 90s. And basically what I would say how I did that is that I would introduce myself to all my teachers before I would even enter their classes. So I would see who they were, meet them, and then each teacher kind of had their own plan. Some gave me their course notes ahead of time. Some met me at lunch hour. Some made the finals worth 70% of my grade or something. So it's a lot of kind of thinking between the lines for the teachers and myself. And I didn't go to a academy or anything, just a normal high school. So it was stressful for sure. And I was running around, but it was an amazing experience and it taught me a lot. Like I said, I haven't done university, as Ken alluded to. I'm kind of in a generation where people just didn't do that. And the age at which my podiums came and when I made the team, that wasn't really an option for me. What I wish that I had done is just one or couple courses a year. And I think that's totally doable. There's so much online learning nowadays, so many courses you can just take online. I don't think for me, NCAA wasn't an option for me. And I was much too old when it maybe could have been an option. But there's so much for online learning. And I think that learning and skiing is incredible because it kind of takes your mind off of it, teaches you that life balance, and also gives you a little bit to look forward to outside of skiing.
Yeah, notwithstanding, just from my perspective, you get to travel to some interesting places, get immersed in some things that you could learn about, so there's some unconventional learning that way. Angus, I'm going to go to you on this education because you've managed a household through that process with both a boy and a girl. How would you say you as a parent have kind of tried to support that endeavor?
I guess to start with Candace, she's bilingual, so she does speak French. She went to school right up to grade 9 at private schools. The private schools worked with her while she was in her early years to be able to take off Fridays to train. When she was in grade 10, she went to a school that allowed her to really dictate the times that she was in class, and the teachers would tell her what needed to be done. So there's still a communication there. With regards to Jack, and Jack mentioned that he went out west, or we sent him out west, and he wasn't going to school. Well, when we did that, Jack was at Peak Academy in Toronto, more or less a hockey school. He was there with Connor McDavid and a number of other athletes. And what we had proposed to them was that, Jack would be away from, say, beginning of December till the end of March, and he'd be out west. So the teachers actually really worked with him. He'd be in the school at 7:30 in the morning and wouldn't leave till 5:36. So the teachers were giving him extra time from the start of school in September up until the date he left, which is around December 1st. He was still doing some online learning when he was out west. And then he came back and was hard at school. So you can have a a junior school work with you. You just really have to find, find the best way to accommodate what you're trying to do. And that's as Aaron said, that's speaking with the teachers, speaking with the principals. So that's, I don't think they missed out anything because they've learned a lot from their experience, as an athlete, making the national team or getting to the national team and being on the national team. That in itself is education.
Yeah, no, good points for sure. And I'm glad we cleared up that 2-year gap there. And this wasn't a discovery where the cat's out of the bag. All right. So, all right, we're going to do a rapid round. We're going to do something a little bit different with Aaron, Jack, and Jeff. I'm going to ask you a very poignant question and just give me your honest answers as easily as you can. So, so we'll start with Aaron. Is that okay? When you were in the start hut, ready to go, what were the things that you would tell yourself right at the wand, right when it's go time?
Arc with the knees, move with the skis, and find freedom.
Awesome. Jack?
Same question?
Yeah, same question, rapid round.
I guess normally I'll think move with the skis, feet under the body, and then send it. Nothing held back.
Love it. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, for me, like right up until I get to the gate, I try to keep my mind off it just to not get too overstimulated mentally. Then when pulls are over the wand, it's dialed in, trying to kind of clear my head of everything that's not about to happen right in front of me, and staring at that first gate and figuring out how I'm going to attack it and just carry speed into the entire course.
Love it. Yeah, no, so if you don't mind, I'm going to take some of those nuggets away and use them in my adult house league because, the stakes are high. All right, well, let's talk about motivation. I'd like to get a sense from you athletes, what really you would say you draw your core inspiration from or your core motivation from to be a ski racer. Aaron?
I think for me, it was just always trying to get better. Of course, sometimes in the gym, I would think about standing on the podium or, but I think that every day it was something different. And, I tried not to put pressure on myself for people back home or people supporting me, but I think every day I drew on something different. And I think that a lot of younger athletes think that we're motivated all of the time, and that's not true. Like, we feel we're not superhuman. We get days where we're totally unmotivated and we don't feel like waking up at 5 a.m. and going out in -20 and skiing. But sometimes it's just starting, just putting in the work, starting, and remember that it's like what kept me there is the feeling of skiing, like the rhythm of a course and how fast you can go and how powerful. That's, I guess, where I always drew it from.
That's great. Love it. Jack, what about you?
I'd say just the act of competing on the hardest courses in the world. I'm definitely somebody who struggles to find motivation through the summer when it's kind of your downtime. And we're kind of in that last 8 days before the first race of the year, and it definitely feels different for me. So it's a lot of it is just trying to keep myself in a place where I can improve throughout the summer, and then when the season comes around and the motivation kind of goes through the roof when you're actually doing the things that you want to be doing. So
it's great. What would you add, Jeff?
I think for me, it's just the want and need to go fast and to be able to find any way to be able to do that better. I think to that also, I can speak for myself, Jack, and my entire team are a bunch of extremely competitive guys. And so everything on and off the hill, just the dryland spike ball game is super competitive. And so you draw into that when it's those hard summer days or you're in the gym or trying to build some strength or some endurance, and it can be not a lot of fun, but you got to keep that in mind and how that's going to give you an extra edge over your competition. And I think that really can fuel you to push forward and keep grinding it out.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good commentary. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Teamwork. And we'll stick with you, the men's team, for the moment. So tell us a little bit, give us a description of what kind of the status quo is right now for the men's team. I mean, last year, 4 podiums. You guys are really sniffing around, and very noticeable, even among, when I watch it as a spectator, I notice, the Austrians, the Norwegians, they're watching you guys. How do you feel about the cohesion of the teamwork? What would you say about, moving from last year to this year?
I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, it's I think that one, there was a word I was thinking of, but the competitiveness between us healthy, because they're with success and with kind of becoming higher ranked in your sport, and even just being at a more prestigious level, I think it's easy to let that competitiveness take over a little bit, and it's kind of the ability at all levels to have that be constructive from one another. Like all of us want to succeed, and everybody wants the whole team to succeed together, because it just fuels us all. But I think a really important piece is keeping all of that very almost mutual between us, understanding that the competitiveness can't overwhelm kind of the relationships and the good that we have on the team.
Yeah, no, I think I follow you there. And Jeff, I'd love to hear your take too. And just saying, I assume all the same dynamics are in play. Like when you guys have gaps between your start orders, you're on the walkie-talkies, sharing info, like really trying to help each other succeed.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to do everything we can to make each other as good as we can. And so I think, it's a really good team collective, and it's definitely being noticed by the Europeans, like you said, like a lot of like the Austrians and like French are pretty good. Like Swiss, their team's pretty divided. Guys are all little kind of superstars, and they're very own program and see each other as competitors more than friends. And I think we're quite the opposite. And I think that is something that we do really draw into. And every time whoever goes first is on the radio as soon as they're through the finish, piping up, no matter nearly how close the guy behind him is, unless you're right behind him, then it's a little tight. But it's a couple bibs. You quickly get over there and give them a heads up what's to come. And we've had a lot of great success with that. And it's something that I think we're really able to use and elevate each other.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Aaron, what would you say about your experience about teamwork with the women's tech team over the years? What were some of the things that really worked, and some of the things that could be better?
Yeah, I think that I think it's what sets Canada apart. And we've said this for so many years. It's what, Mitch and I had a similar thing to these guys. I podiumed in the next weekend. Mitch had her first podium. And that's what you can see. That's when you can see the power of teamwork and how it works together, and how you can pace each other on the hill, and how important it is to take that competition away when you're off the hill. And what I've talked to with a few of the athletes, with Mitch and actually Broad, is that when it's natural competition and when it's already there, because we're all competitive people, that's why we do this. And when it's manufactured, it's no longer healthy. I think it's, especially, I can only speak from a girl's point of view, but when coaches try to implement that competitiveness by comparison, it's no longer healthy. But when it's there and everyone's competitive, and if Mitch squats more than me and she turns around and says, like, I did it, now you can do it, I think that that's what's really healthy, and that's what pushes us all to be better when we're on team. So it's like we elevate each other's levels throughout the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, thanks for that commentary. And just a reminder, we're welcoming questions that we'll get to in a little bit. We will have ski boot and binding prizes from both Head and Atomic to give away to the best questions. And so I wanted to just pivot and talk about sport variety. So Aaron, you talked a bit about, your you're doing both water skiing and water ski jumping, if I'm correct on that, as one of the sports that you developed or ran tandem with the ski racing. How about, I'm going to ask Angus, what about the sports variety that you saw with both Jack and Candace? What worked, didn't work? You might be muted.
It all worked, and we tried to keep them in as many sports as we could until they made the decision to, say, select skiing. Jack was in badminton, soccer, hockey, golf, single A hockey. He was actually a really, really good hockey player, and it came down to hockey or skiing. And from the conversations with Jack, he picked skiing because it was more of a community, where the hockey was a little more individual. And that was his comment. Squash, and like Aaron, he loved water skiing in the summer. Candace, soccer, tennis, track and field. But before she became a skier, she was into figure skating, and figure skated pretty much every day for right up until the age of 15 or 16. And I think that builds a well-rounded individual, and it's fun. The parents are really busy, but I know a lot of them that do it today, and I know a lot of them that have done it. But it just builds a good athlete and a good person.
Yeah. Aaron, back to you in water skiing. What were the parallels there? I mean, obviously being a skier, you understand, outside ski, tighter lines and stuff, but, obviously a lot different upper body experience. What was it about that sport that helped you in other sports that you did as well?
Yeah, I think my mom would be the first to say that a lot of sports she got us into were, like, we were in gymnastics for air awareness. We were swimming to try to, obviously, if you crash water skiing, it's good to be a good swimmer. We were in tons of sports, diving, karate, dance. Like, we were in everything except not team sports. But as a kid, I didn't realize the parallels between water skiing and alpine skiing. I think water skiing was a little bit more of cross training for me. And I think what it really taught me was what pressure meant. I was competing at very international events at a very, very young age. I was drug tested for the first time in water skiing at age 13. So I think it taught me hard work. We worked very hard water skiing. It wasn't the same in alpine skiing. We used to train 5 sets a day, and we couldn't do anything else until we were done our sets for that day. And so I think it taught me how to work hard. And of course, there was strength and there was fearlessness that developed through there. But as for technical, I think I was too young to realize at the time what could have crossed over. So I don't know if it really made that big of an impact, but I think what really did was learning how to work hard, how to stay motivated, and really how to compete at an international level, because that happened a lot earlier.
Okay, very good. We're going to pivot now and just talk about something else, but I think it's going to be one of the things I know we've itemized as being important for families and for parents and racers is I want to talk about working with your governing body as an athlete and a parent. And Ken, I'll throw this question to you. What are some of the key things to know and questions to ask to your governing body? Well, I think we've got you muted as well.
Thank you for the reminder again. I think that, when we talk about it and when we talk about governing body, it's obviously the national one is Alpine Canada. Provincially, it's within your province. So Ontario Alpine, Ontario, BC Alpine, and so on. And then you have your club. And at each level, you have to be prepared to engage with each one. And I think it's number one is don't be afraid to ask questions, because and you'll find that often, the question that you may have that you need have, and that you're really going, okay, how does this particular thing work? You're probably going to find that that other parents are feeling the same way, because not everybody's immersed in the sport and has lots and lots of experience. But there are people around, and I have great trust in our coaches who are all professionally certified. They have a tremendous amount of experience. So that's the first thing is do not be afraid to ask a question. There is always critical review, and that's a tough one, because when you say critical review, it does mean that you have to be looking at it, objectively. But also, when you're critiquing something, it doesn't mean that you're trying to tear it down. You're trying to, your intent is to try to make it better. And so no one should ever be afraid of of suggesting critical review, or following an event, following a training day, following a trip, that you sit down and say, this is what worked well. And we had some bumps, because if you're not looking to try to always make it better, if you're always just kind of going with the flow and accepting the status quo, then it won't get better. So, and it is important for everyone who's engaged that they're always looking to try to make it a better environment. So the key, though, with it all is to do it in an environment of respect. And that's tough. People are probably familiar that there's a lot of discussion going on right now about some of the behavior that's gone on within in our national governing bodies, but that's not just exclusively there. So I think the key message there is that any discussion that you have, any question you have, should always be done in an environment of respect. Respect the authority of the person you're engaging with, respect their opinion, and then in turn expect them to extend that respect to you as well.
That's great. Angus, what would you add, if anything? Got you muted. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with what Ken said. He's right about kind of your best friend is your coach if you're a parent. Asking them, what you can do for them, for the team, getting a dialogue from how did the camp go? Did the kids have fun? And just ask how you can help. I mean, that's how, that's how it worked in minor league hockey when I was coaching. It worked in, the badminton and the squash organizations that I helped and Jack was a part of, and the figure skating that Candace was a part of. And that's being, as Ken said, respectful. But you're really just asking questions to find out how you can help. And that's the key. It's the same way we're talking about it today, that we need the, we need the support of the clubs, the fans, the skiers, just the family of skiing across Canada. And that's it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So that's good. And the other question I would say is that how much involvement does the actual racer have? Is that a dialogue that usually falls to the parent, probably in the early years? Ken?
I'm going to apologize. I was just responding to a question in the chat. So could you repeat?
Oh, yeah. I was just saying that governing body discussion, obviously in the early years, the parent probably, takes the lead. At what stage is the racer more involved in those discussions?
Well, I think, and that's a good question, because when kids are pretty young, and that's mostly at the club level, they need to have the right environment, a fun environment, building cohorts, really making it so that they actually take over the motivation, because what their role is they're saying to mom and dad, come on, I got to be out on the hill in time because I want to go hang out with my friends. And the friends, and then also the discipline, the regimen that the coaches bring into the training programs, and those feed on themselves, even though they may not be explicitly fun. Kids like to be challenged. Kids look to be challenged. And so at that level, you're guiding. So there isn't the base of knowledge from the youngster. I think the transition is when they go FIS or are older than U16, where that's when the parent is less directly involved. And so therefore it is important at that point in time where they're now starting to spend a lot of time with a coach, with their team, away from the family, that they have to learn, they have to take responsibility. They have to say, this is my program. And so the responsibility is not only in listening and working with your coach and understanding your own program, but then taking responsibility for your actions, taking responsibility for your program, taking responsibility for your dryland training, your on-snow training, being prepared, being on time. And those are all skills that we all know as parents are extremely important, because in life, that's what you need to learn to do. And so that's really the fundamental of taking responsibility. So really from there, then it's important beyond that, as you stay in the sport and move up to the provincial level, where there's an even higher level of responsibility put on the shoulders of the athletes for fundraising, for skiing with people that are supporting the sport, and then into the national team, where there is an athlete representation, and it's important that those athlete representatives have the ear of the leadership of the sport and share that perspective, because at the end, the person who knows the sport the very best is the athlete. They're the ones that are doing it. They're the ones that understand the challenges. They're the ones that get into the start gate, and they're the ones that understand the rules, understand how it works and what is good and what isn't good. And it's so important to listen to what they have to say. And at the same time, then the athletes have to have that, take that seriously as a responsibility and part of what makes you a professional athlete.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I'm sure that's appreciated by those dialing in. All right, so let's talk about those magic moments, those breakthrough result days that you athletes have had, Aaron, Jack, Jeff. So I want to just talk through, like, when the stars aligned, those days where you had a really great result. So Aaron, how would you describe that fateful day in 2012 in Offerschwang? First Canadian female to win a slalom since Betsy Clifford some 40 years prior. What was that, describe kind of like that day and how it all came together?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was talking about this the other day because recently a young athlete asked me when I was the most nervous in my career. And athletes ask this often because I think they feel like if they feel nervous, they won't perform. Before that day, I was the most nervous I had ever been because my parents had booked tickets to the World Cup finals and I hadn't qualified yet. So they were very preemptively booking their tickets, which are obviously a lot of money. And I felt so much pressure. I couldn't look in the mirror. All I could think about is I wasn't qualified yet with each passing day. And in the morning I woke up and I just wanted the race to be canceled. I just wanted to run away, fight or flight, I guess. And the race was delayed. I think it heard me from above because it was super warm temperatures, soft snow, and they wanted to try to prepare the hill. Well, luckily for me, it wasn't canceled. It was just a little bit delayed. And I remember having an amazing warm up and just feeling that amazing feeling I explained earlier, like that power and the freedom and like, I don't know, feeling great on my skis. And I remember standing in the start, and for the first time in my career, I felt like I belonged in the start. I deserved to be there. And my first run, I came down, and I think my bib number was around 24 or something. And I came down into 5th, and I was really, really excited because that was my previous best place was 13th. And for second run, I remember standing in the start again. I just felt calm and like I deserved to be there. And, the 5th gate down, I got hit in the face by a gate. So if you look at the photos from back then, my goggles are below my nose. I couldn't see much on my way down. And I remember, instead of thinking, oh, I just made a huge mistake, I remember thinking, oh, that was like a hit in your head to do better, to be better. And I used that as momentum to start doing better. And I can remember, thinking to stand tall going into a flush, and thinking everything going down that run all came together. I just remember everything so well. And I crossed the finish line. I had a huge celebration because I was guaranteed 5th place. And eventually I kept moving up and passing people who were behind me. And of course the weather played in a little bit that day, but yeah, and I won. And I think what meant the most to me is when I stood on the podium and heard our anthem, like I stood and looked out at my team, and my team was in tears, not because they were like jealous or anything like that. It was because I think we knew that we had done it together as a team. And that's the team that I had at that point in time, where we were family. And me stepping on the podium was, Maddie Irwin knows what role she played in that. And Ellie Turwheel knows what role she played in that. And so it was like a very special day to share with my whole team. But really cool to look back on it and realize like the emotions that I actually felt going into the day. It wasn't like I just stood there and I was a superhuman and pushed out of the start with no fear. So it's pretty cool to look back.
Awesome. And now, just as a follow-up question to that, would you say that you would try to draw as much routine ahead of a race to replicate that in future years? Or if you were guiding a future, a current junior racer, how would you kind of describe some basic tips to kind of trust your instincts, be confident right before racing?
Yeah, I think what I would say is it's different for everyone. I mean, for me, I definitely had some routines, but I didn't like to rely on those routines because, as you know, skiing, it can be bad weather. You can have delays. You can have to warm up 6 times in a day because it's stop start. How many times? The speed guys know more than I do in slalom. And so I definitely had some routines that I like to do, or morning warm up or something. But, if you're running 5 minutes late and you have to cut your morning warm up short, you can't start thinking that you're not going to do well that day because your routine got interrupted. And so for sure we have these routines, but I think that it was always really important to also go with the flow, go with the instinct, and kind of have these different mental tools in my toolbox and know what I needed to pick out on that day. Some days I felt nervous and needed a different tool than other days when I felt really fired up and knew that I needed to calm it down a little bit. So I think it's as you develop putting these tools in the toolbox. And that's why I say it's so important to develop these mental skills and these physical skills, like learning how to do a proper warm up so that you can have, all these tools to choose from when the day comes.
Thanks for that. That's great. Okay, Jeff, I'm going to go to you now. Breakthrough result of your choice, really. It doesn't have to be from last year. But what was it about, that things that came together for you that you thought worked and you try to replicate?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple along the way, nothing quite as tremendous as a World Cup win like Aaron's there. But I think it's the same process. It's all about kind of feeling yourself and having the confidence to know that you can do it. And whether you realize that there's a chance or not, to have that top 30, top 15, top 10, whatever podium. But it's kind of all internal, I find, for me. And going along, like one of my first NORAM wins was definitely a big surprise for me. It was in the slalom, oddly enough. I'm a speed skier now. But against some stiff competition, a lot of World Cup guys were there. Eric was there, and so it was a bit. Definitely didn't see it in the cards. But it was on a flat hill that kind of suited my style. And I knew that I had speed, that I could compete with guys at that level on flat hills, and kind of just went up there, shot my shot, had a good first run. And then second run, obviously I was feeling all sorts of nerves like Aaron's talking, but it's something inside you just knows that you can do it. And I was out there able to find that next gear and came down and had a great run and ended up with a win that day. And so it was definitely pretty cool and a lot of fun. Not something that I was expecting, but I think that's part of the excitement. And wrap it all up. I think for me, it's all internal and really convincing yourself that you have that speed and the ability to do it.
Right. Jack, what would you say? I mean, pick one kind of breakthrough result day, and what was it?
I think there's a lot of breakthrough result days. I think for each level that you get to, there's a new one. But I'd say my one for World Cup racing was, I guess with the consistency and kind of just knowing that I was capable of doing it, had to be last year in Cortina in the Alpine of mine, when I won the first run of the alpine line, and I just remember coming through the finish, and it was a day where there weren't necessarily any nerves for me because it was an alpine line. I was starting 35th. I just was, it was kind of like one of those races where you have no expectations for yourself. And for me, I guess every time I stepped into a start gate, what I learned from there was no matter stress levels, no matter nerves, no matter what happens, the only way you're going to succeed is if you kind of accomplish the few things that you need to do to ski fast. And so every time I'm at the start gate or at the top, I could be a complete mess and stressed out and nervous. And it's something that I've learned to be able to just focus in and understand that if I really want to accomplish or be fast, I have to do certain things. And if you can wrap your head around that, and for myself, I can be consistent day in, day out. And it's not an easy place to get to, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I love hearing those comments. So thank you for that. Okay, I just had one last question before we're going to turn it over to some of those that have been submitted to post to the group. I talked about at the top of the order, just about, our inspiration and putting these events together through Path to the Podium being kind of like, conversations about, finding one's path to be your very best, whatever that is. Doesn't need to be World Cup. It's just, keeping it fun, keeping it about, just to be your best. But I want to talk about kind of how well equipped the team is to compete this year, and talk about resourcefulness, because, we all know that the panelists here, and I'm sure everyone on the call knows, competing against the Austrians, the Swiss, the French, basically take your pick, is a difficult task. And so, how well are we set up to compete? And, where are there gaps in the programming? And so I'd like to hear from Ken and Angus on this topic, but I'll start with you, Angus.
I'm going to try to keep it really short. There are always gaps in any sport, be it hockey, be it skating, be it tennis. Probably for the last 8 years, we've been doing fundraising to fill those gaps, and that is gaps over and above aligned budgets that are received by in this case, the men's team. The first event that we did with you, Nick, was the movie night that we used to hold in Collingwood. Last year, the first Path to the Podium event, both Ken and I came to you. We had the new clubhouse at the Peaks, and you saw the need to help us and become part of that community. It's been our goal over the last 8 years to help try to fill those gaps. So one gap would be that we're trying to fill this year was a pre-Lake Louise camp that the boys are at right now. And some of the funding we've raised to date is helping with that camp. Another example of the funding that we've been able to, or the additional program that we've been able to add, is a sports psychologist for all the athletes. Something that all the Europeans have. And the list is not super long, but this year's list, we're trying to raise about 140,000. We're a little over halfway there, but it's all those small little things that, the extra day on snow, the sports psychologist. It's all of those little things, and some of those things were part of last year's fundraising that has helped, and we can see that from the results last year. I think that there are always going to be gaps. We just have to try to fill them as best we can. I will say that the community, not just here in Ontario, but right across the country, we do have support from them, and we want to try to build that out so that we can build the funding out even further. And that's something I think, you as a committee member, Ken and Jeff, we'll have discussions with in the future.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful that you say all those things for a number of reasons. One is for the people that are dialed into this Zoom call, if you do have a talented racer who progresses, to the level that our panelists are and have been, then these will be, undertakings that you'll have to go through, and you'll hopefully be able to stand on the shoulders of others who have fostered it all along, right? And I think there's been examples of where maybe that has been broken over time.
I agree. I just to give you a little history, when I think I was probably 11, maybe 12, I remember my father doing the same thing for the women's team. Selling raffle tickets. There were many parties held here at the escarpment in prior years to raise money to fill gaps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just something that I love being part of, and it's fun when you fill those gaps and you see the results coming.
Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight that too for those that are out there, and there are fundraising initiatives being done for many of our national team racers. There's kind of the combination of the top-down fundraising and the bottom-up fundraising. And our initiative through Path to Podium is more bottom-up. So through our dialogue and access through to the coaches of the team, we understand where the gaps are. And then we do fundraising events. We're, hoping for some donations tonight, and we have that fundraising link in the chat there for you to look at. Donate what you can, but rest assured of this: every single dollar that gets donated will go to the team gaps that we have itemized for this year. Last year, when we undertook this same initiative, we raised $100,000. And we filled things that, to me, were, just as a fan, very kind of glaring and critical, one of which being a pre-Olympic camp before the boys went to Beijing. So critical stuff. All fundraising is important. Team members are required to pay team fees and raise money for team fees. That's important. But what we're doing with Path to the Podium is more, okay, we've accomplished team fees. We've accomplished that. Now, where are the gaps so that our racers can compete against the best in the world? Ken, anything you'd want to add to what Angus and I have said there?
All I'd add to it is just that to understand what we're referring to with these gaps is the one thing we don't want to have happen with any of our athletes as they go through their program in a year is that they get to the end of the year and they say, we wish we had done, we wish we'd had another coach. We wish we'd had more time in a particular training environment. We wished we had a physio. We wish that that's an opportunity missed. So it's really of saying that we sit with the coach. Angus is the lead on this. He sits with the coaches and says, what are the things that's missing from the program that's going to leave you with the confidence, the coaches, and by extension, that gets carried to the athletes to make sure that all the bases are covered. Now, we're never going to be able to fill every bucket, every opportunity, every chance, but you want to make sure that what you're doing is you're coming in and instilling confidence and filling those critical gaps. And the last thing I would say is that, and this was mentioned in one of the questions that that were put to us, that it's incredible the support that does come from the community when we do all come together. So part of what we're trying to do, and Angus has spent many years, many months, and Jeff and you, Nick, as well, to try to bring together the community in the escarpment area. I have tried to do it in Alberta. Everybody that's involved tries to do it within their respective communities, realizing that by coming together, it's a lot easier and it's actually a whole lot more fun if we all rally around whatever event or opportunity it is, and the best part about that is the generosity is quite remarkable. That we've seen people that that come in and say, as long as I know the money is going to the team, I'm more than happy to help out at whatever level I can, and that can be big and small. But it's been remarkable to see the generosity that comes from the community to help these athletes fill those gaps and meet their goals.
Agreed. Yeah. And so just on that point, I will let everyone know, just as a reminder, that a week tonight, we are hosting a dinner gala at the Georgian Peaks Clubhouse for that very purpose, to do more dedicated fundraising for this men's team to fill these gaps. As Angus mentioned, we have a laundry list we're trying to clean of about 140,000, and last year we raised about 100. So we think it's doable, it's impactful, and we still have a few seats available for that event. And we will have Aaron there as a panelist, Ken Reed, Todd Brooker, as well as Larissa Yurku has a very interesting story on her path to the podium. So I invite you to join us for that if you've liked what you've heard tonight. And I'm going to pass it over to our friend Jeff McInnes if you want to run through a few questions. And just a reminder to people that there are ski packages available for the best questions. So make them good.
Yeah, Nick, there's been a lot of great questions. We've been monitoring them all. Ken and Aaron have been answering quite a few of them. And so we will email out the winner of the two packages. A couple of quick ones. I think actually one of them is from Aaron's dad, and over to the two male athletes getting ready for Lake Louise. And his question was, is it better to start the race season overseas, or what are you thinking about the starting on home soil? So over to you, Jeff, then Jack.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this year the plan was to have our first race in Zermatt, which unfortunately got canceled due to lack of snow. But I think for us, it's pretty special to be able to host the first race at home, being able to do that in front of a home crowd, especially for me in Alberta. It's really close to home. It's something that's really cool, and obviously a bit of a edge with being on snow that I'm familiar with. So it's something that I think is it's a highlight of every year, being able to start there, and hopefully continues into the future. Obviously on the tech side, it's a little different. It's the Solden. That's such a special race to start the season off with. So I think they're more than happy to start it off there. And yeah, I think it's a fun dynamic, no matter where you are. Each place early season is pretty unique and cool. And so it's a lot of fun venues.
Yeah, not much to add. I think that question is very individual. I personally was not super excited for the Zermatt races, and a little part of me was kind of happy that they were canceled, but the competitor side was saying the exact opposite. But as a speed skier, it's sometimes hard to get early season or proper early season training, and I think for a lot of people it's hard to feel fully ready to jump into a full World Cup downhill at that time of year. I don't know if it's never been done, but at least in our careers, we've never had to be race ready by that time. So it was definitely a little bit of a shock, new scene that we didn't really know exactly how to prep for. So being able to start in Lake Louise, not only it being our home race, it's exciting, and it just feels a little bit more natural.
Fantastic. And I'm going to ask everyone, including you, Nick, to answer this one. I think a lot of it was covered on your, someone was asking, what's your favorite ski moments in competition? We answered that with the athletes. I want all of you to answer the, and outside of competition, that love of the sport. So Nick, over to you, and then send it around.
So this is just as a fan, what I've observed is kind of coolest moment ski racing.
What do you love about ski racing and the whole sport?
Oh, I just love that it's a family sport. It's outdoors, and it's very very community focused, and I mean, every day can, I mean, it can get a little long in the tooth, but every day can be a celebration off, you know, after you ski, and the après, which I tend to thrive at personally. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just kind of in my blood, you know. I just love everything about it, and the racing aspect of it. Just as a kid, remember growing up watching, you know, the Crazy Canucks, you know, compete against the likes of Franz Klammer, and I just, it was fascinating.
Awesome. Over to Angus, since you're off mute.
You know, it's really fun going out and free skiing. Jack said he's competitive. I think I'm way more competitive than he is. I like going fast, and it's the camaraderie. You know, I hadn't done house league at Georgian Peaks for probably 4 or 5 years. I'm now 58, and Nick Hamilton got me back into house league racing last year. So, you know, and talking with Tomas Senek, who's our coach, and, you know, what am I doing wrong? Can we get extra training days? So it all comes back to you. And it's just a lot of fun being part of the sport.
That's awesome. And we had an interview with the president of Toronto Ski Club, who's also the president of the and CEO of the Canadian Ski Council. And Jack was telling him how much he enjoyed going to Masters Ski Racing and watching you race way back in the day. So echoing that back, over to Ken, and then we're going to Aaron, and last word to the two gentlemen.
Well, I'm going to maybe surprise everybody a little bit and say that my favorite moment in ski racing was actually when I was president and CEO of Alpine Canada, and we won 15 podiums. The team delivered 15 podiums, and it was to be part of a team within Alpine Canada, working with the coaches, with staff, with everyone that had worked so hard and so long to. And the reason I flagged that was in season 2007, 2008, because that was the high water mark of alpine skiing in Canada. That was the best season ever for our sport. And it's my sincere hope that that's a mark that can be beaten sometime soon, because it was tremendously rewarding working with the people, but tremendously rewarding to see how the athletes stepped up. And it wasn't just one; it was both men and women. It was a real team effort. So that was my most rewarding moment. The other thing I would say, which is on a personal level, was being able to step out of the tunnel at the top of the Kleine Matterhorn, in Zermatt, and look out on an early July morning, 7 a.m., seeing hard frozen corduroy in front of you, looking across the glacier, the Matterhorn over your shoulder, sliding down the hill with pair of skis over your shoulder, helping out the athletes going down to help with a day of training on the glacier. It's pretty special to be able to do that. It's an incredible opportunity, and that, to me, for any parent looking to have their children ski race, to be able to experience those opportunities, to learn to become comfortable in the alpine environment, to learn both the risks and the appreciation of skiing on glaciers, to become familiar with these places, so that and the people that you meet and the friends that you meet, to be able to be down the lift line and talk to Perman Zurbriggen and talk about how a great day it is while he's skiing with his daughter. All those kinds of things are so incredible experiences to be able to take with you as you go through life.
Ken, thanks so much, and I'm so glad you mentioned your time as president of this amazing Alpine Canada, and thank you for what you did. It was just truly remarkable, and giving back to the sport as you're doing tonight. Over to Aaron, then over to Jeff and Jack.
Yeah, I think my favorite things to do when I wasn't racing on the team was to check out the places that we got to go, maybe local coffee shop, ask the locals where they like to go, try the local food, go for hikes and things like that, really explore the area. But I think with skiing in general, I did some filming back in 2019, and I really loved that it opened the door into backcountry skiing for me, because all I had ever done was raced on ice. And this just opened the door into something I could do with my family, and like really rekindled my love for skiing in general, all kinds of skiing. And I think we're so lucky that when we retire from the sport, it's not like bobsled where you're just out of the sport and you never do it again. I'll ski for the rest of my life. So I think that's what's really special about skiing.
Well, that's a joy to hear. Over to you two on the dawn of Lake Louise.
Yeah, I think for me, one that comes to mind was our spring camp last year in Sunshine. Obviously, we were up there for business and doing lots of long training days, but we had one day where a whole whack of snow rolled in. It tends to happen when you're training up on the Continental Divide. And you know, you wake up and it's all training's gonna be crap today, and then the next thing is all training's canceled. But then we had everybody out there on powder skis. Like, I remember the national ski team out ripping powder turns, having a great time. We were some of the only people on the hill because we were staying up at the hotel on the hill, and so we were up there early, and it was just a ton of fun. And it really cool to see the entire team of professional athletes going and doing what's different for us and loving the sport every way we can get it.
Yeah, I don't know. Skiing. I guess off the hill, in the rare occurrence that we have time to ourselves, we've had the opportunity to go see Innsbruck and a few other places in Europe, and those are definitely off snow, away from skiing things that I would cherish the most, is just actually getting the opportunity to travel per se. I as ski racers, it's something we do all the time. We travel from country to country to country, but we don't necessarily get to see that much stuff. So when you do get the opportunity and you do have the chance to see where you are, that's something that I always enjoy.
That's awesome. And yeah, we'll definitely get we'll send an email out to the two top questions. Thank you for so much of them, and thanks for we had the panelists answer them along the way. We can't top that, Nick, so back to you for the final thoughts.
Yeah, so final thoughts. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, listen, everyone who's dialed in, if you're a young aspiring racer, if you're a parent, or if you're just a fan of the sport, thank you for joining us in this campaign. We hope that this was valuable information to you on your journey as you try to be your very best in this sport. And please consider supporting the cause of Path to the Podium. We are putting every single dollar towards known gaps for the ski team that will make a difference. We saw the impact it could make last year. It has momentum. We'd love you to be a part of that momentum. If more of you would like information about next week's dinner at Georgian Peaks, it is not a Georgian Peaks event. It is open to our broad community, wide open to anyone to join. It is a VIP event. For the true racing fan, we'll have live auction prizes that you will want to take home. Please visit my Facebook page for more information. We have the posters posted there. Otherwise, it's my pleasure to conclude tonight's event. Thank you to my panelists and to Jeff for making this a reality. And we will be back not before too long. Have a great ski season.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.